Welcome to Reader Channel Episode 1.28 Chapter 5. Zoning. I will read from Article 364 to Article 370. Article 364. Zoning. 1. Each natural protective area may be divided into different zones as follows. 8th Core Zone. Has high value for conservation of animal or plant, species that are rare, nearly extinct, or threatened, wild animal breeding sites, and fragile ecosystems. Access to this zone shall be prohibited except for officials responsible. 4. Natural Protected Areas Management on duty and natural scientific researchers. To protect and conserve natural resources, biodiversity, and the environment with prior authorization from the ministry responsible for environment and natural resources, and when it is necessary for national security and defense. B. Conservation Zone. This is adjacent to the core zone and has value for natural resource conservation, ecosystems, watersheds, and natural scenery areas. Access to this zone shall have prior authorization from officials responsible for natural protected areas management, except for national security and defense necessity. The use of byproducts of natural resources in the zone for local community livelihood, which does not affect biodiversity, shall be under the control of the officials responsible for national protected area management. C. Sustainable Use Zone. Has economic value for national economic development, direct management and conservation of natural protected areas, and contributes to raising the local community's livelihood. The royal government may allow for sustainable biodiversity development in the area as proposed by the ministry, responsible for environment and natural resources in consultation with relevant ministries or institutions, subnational administrations, and local communities in compliance with legal procedures. Deep Community Zone. Contributes to economic and social development of a local community with existing activities including but not limited to housing, rice fields, plantations, and public physical infrastructure. Issuance of an immobile property. Ownership certificate or permission to use land in this zone shall receive prior approval from the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources in compliance with the applicable law and regional instruments. 2. Determination of zoning in each natural protected area shall be determined by a subdecree. 3. These natural protected areas shall not cover those designed to and managed by Apsara authority or other authorities entrusted by the royal government. Article 365. Criteria for zoning. 1. Zoning and zone modification, as stated in Article 364, zoning of this code shall be based on the following criteria. A. The purpose of zone management. B. Potential natural resource value in each zone. C's economic, social, and cultural impacts on the zone. D. Possible support of natural resources. E. Zone's geographical location. 2. Guidelines for each zoning in natural protected areas shall be determined in the broadcast of the minister responsible for environment and natural resources. Article 366. Modification of zone boundary. Modification of a zone boundary as stated in Article 364, zoning, of this code shall be based on the following. A. Specific scientific and ecosystem information, including about wildlife species, biodiversity resources, traditional knowledge, genetic diversity, economic, social, and cultural resources that have changed or been threatened. B. Compliance with government policies and strategies. Article 367. Mapping, installing boundary markers, and registering state public land. 1. The ministry responsible for environment and natural resources shall establish an official mapping of each natural protected area, define on the map with precise coordinates under participation from the ministry or institutions responsible for land management, urban planning and construction, relevant ministries or institutions, subnational administration, in consultation with local communities. 2. The ministry responsible for environment and natural resources under participation from relevant ministries or institutions and subnational administration shall develop zoning as stated in Article 360, zoning, and Article 365, criteria for zoning, of this code and install boundary markers and register state public land in each natural protected area as indicated in the designated map. Chapter 6. Local communities' participation and rights to use. Article 368. Participation. Local communities, the public, and civil society shall be encouraged to participate provide, and receive information concerning the management, protection, conservation, and development of natural protected areas. Article 369. Right to use natural resources. 1. The state shall recognize and ensure the right of local communities to use natural resources, in line with their traditional, customary, and religious practices in natural protected areas. 2. The right to use natural resources in traditional and customary ways to meet the household needs of local communities shall be made possible in sustainable use and conservation zones in compliance with the guidelines determined in a procas by the minister responsible for environment and natural resources. Article 370. Use of natural resources. 1. Using natural resources in compliance with this code shall be possible in the sustainable use zones and community zones. These conditions shall not prevent using natural resource byproducts in conservation areas as permitted by Article 369, the right to use natural resources of this code. 2. The use of natural resources shall comply with the management plan and technical guidelines of the ministry responsible for environment and natural resources to ensure the sustainability of natural resources in natural protected area communities. Article 371. Establishment of community protected areas. 1. The ministry responsible for environment and natural sources shall have the authority to establish community protected areas in sustainable use zones under the administrative management of subnational administration. 2. Subnational administration may initiate, coordinate, support, give permission principles, and recognize the establishment of community protected areas after receiving approval from the ministry responsible for environment and natural resources. 3. Subnational administrations shall study the possibility of designating community protected areas and determining specific appropriate locations and sizes in consultation and coordination with local communities and relevant stakeholders. 4. Community protective areas communities shall enter into an agreement with subnational administration, in which the agreement's validity shall not exceed 25 years. 5. If community protected area communities do not comply with the agreement and management plan of the community protected area, subnational administrations shall have the right to suspend the operation of community protected areas to review and reassess. 6. Subnational administrations shall have the right to revoke the community protected area agreement after receiving approval from the ministry responsible for environment and natural resources in cases the communities do not comply with the agreement and management plan of the community protected area. 7. When it is found that community protected area communities do not adequately comply with the agreement, the ministry responsible for environment and natural resources shall have the right to order subnational administration to revoke the agreement. Thank you for listening. See you in episode 1.29.